You can be turning to Proverbs chapter 9. I heard from Brother Kenny and Miss Ashley. They took off on Monday, and they arrived at their destination in Alabama today, this afternoon, safe and sound, good travels and everything. And so thank you for praying for their travels. As far as Levi and Nadia, who knows? They've been off the grid since like 4:30 on Friday, and nobody's heard from them since. So no news is good news. Proverbs chapter 9. Verse 1 is where we'll begin. Wisdom hath builded her house. She hath hewn out her 7 pillars. She hath killed her beasts. She hath mingled her wine. She hath also furnished her table. She hath sent forth her maidens. She crieth upon the highest places of the city. Whoso is simple, let him turn in hither. As for him that wanteth understanding, she saith to him, Come eat of my bread, and drink of the wine which I have mingled. Forsake the foolish, and live, and go in the way of understanding. Then look at verse 13. Here's the total opposite. A foolish woman is clamorous. She is simple and knoweth nothing. For she sitteth at the door of her house on a seat in the high places of the city, to call passengers who go right on their ways. Whoso is simple, let him turn in hither. And as for him that wanteth understanding, she saith to him, Stolen waters are sweet, and bread eaten in secret is pleasant. But he knoweth not that the dead are there, and that her guests are in the depths of hell. So we're going to talk about these two competing offers tonight. Two competing offers, and you have a choice to make. When you're making choices, do you like when you have lots of options? We tend to like options in life, don't we? Too many options, and that can slow you down. That can paralyze you. But we always like feeling we've got some kind of a choice rather than having our direction determined for us. Like if you were shopping around for a job and you put out a whole bunch of applications, it would feel better to get a couple of job offers and be able to sort of compare between the two and choose which one you feel is better. If, let's say you're single, what if you had 2 people ask you out on a date at the same time? And they're both interested in you, they're both available at the exact same time on Friday night, and you can't date both of them, it's one or the other. You know, there's 2 competing offers, and you've got to make a choice. It's kind of the feel here in this poem. Chapter 9 is wrapping up this introductory appeal to choose wisdom. And after this, chapter 10 begins the typical long, like scattered bits of wisdom and advice for life. But from chapter 1, the wise father has been trying to convince his son, you need to live God's way. You need to live according to God's wisdom. And he's sort of developed wisdom by now into this living character. She's like a wise woman, and she offers a wonderful life to anyone who will choose her. And so this woman, Lady Wisdom, has been contrasted with another kind of woman, the strange woman. She represents the pursuit of forbidden pleasure, of living in sinful choices. And so here, that comparison that's been sort of developed and built, it reaches its climax here in chapter 9. And they're pitted one against another, and they're both on either side of the street, and they're calling out for the young man to choose her. The structure of chapter 9 is really neat. It's made, you could liken it to a sandwich, okay? There's 6 verses about the wise woman at the beginning. There's 6 verses about the foolish woman at the end, and then there's 6 verses in the middle about the main choice. What kind of person are you going to be? Are you going to be a wise person, or are you going to be one who scorns the ways of God? And we're just going to look at those outer parts tonight and compare the offers that are made by the wise and the foolish women. And we'll save the main core of the chapter for next time. Now, these two women in the poem, they're obviously not just about, picking the right kind of person to date or to marry. That it works on that level, interestingly. He's so perfect in the way that he chooses these allegories that it actually does work. If you're looking for some of the attributes of a good person to choose for a life mate, or what to watch out for in those warnings, they show up here. But really, each of them represents something deeper. Each one is a whole way of life. And they're showing how that every person has a choice to make, whether you're going to go God's way, which is the way of wisdom, or the way of the world, the way of foolishness and folly. And both of these ways of life are available to anyone. And as always, God gives us the freedom to choose. He always honors us with that free will to choose our own way. The choice is not complicated. It's just a choice. It's kind of like the Garden of Eden. And the book of Proverbs has a lot in common with that battle between good and evil at the very beginning. God gave to humanity a choice. You can eat of the tree of life, and you can dwell in paradise forever. Or you can eat the forbidden fruit and exit paradise, but you can't have it both ways. It's going to be one or the other. And so it is here in Proverbs 9. 2 women, 2 voices crying out, 2 meals being offered, and then and 2 competing offers with 2 very different ends. So we're going to compare these 2, first of all, and look at how they're similar, and then we'll study out kind of what makes them different and those key things. This fan is making a noise right now. Could we turn that off, or I'll be distracted the whole time? Do little noises bug you? Doesn't the Bible say something about that as you start getting older? You start hearing little noises, and it's like, what's making that rattle? I don't know. That sounds much better. Thank you. So let's look at what's similar about these 2 ladies. Notice they both have a house. They both have a house that they're inviting people into. Verse 1 says, "Wisdom hath builded her house. She hath hewn out her 7 pillars." And then down in verse 13, it says, "A foolish woman is clamorous. She is simple and knoweth nothing. For she sitteth at the door of her house on a seat in the high places of the city." So they both have a house. They invite in. They both have prepared a meal that they are inviting others to share. Verse 2, of wisdom, it says, "She hath killed her beasts. She hath mingled her wine. She hath also furnished her table." In verse 5, she says, "Come, eat of my bread and drink of the wine which I have mingled." Verse 17, the foolish woman says, "Stolen waters are sweet, and bread eaten in secret is pleasant." So here they are, each in their house, each with a meal that they've spread out here to lure someone in, to make an enticement. Both wisdom and folly, you could say, are out there in the high places of the city, calling out, crying to be heard, wanting to be chosen. They're both in that same competition. Verse 3 says of wisdom, "She hath sent forth her maidens, she crieth upon the highest places of the city." Again, verse 14, the foolish woman, "She sitteth at the door of her house on a seat in the high places of the city to call passengers who go right on their ways." And then look at what they cry out. This is where the 2 poems, or the 2 sides of the poem, just really bind together in a nice little bow here. Verse 4, "Whoso is simple, let him turn in hither. As for him that wanteth understanding, she saith to him." And then look at verse 16, the exact same words. "Whoso is simple, let him turn in hither. And as for him that wanteth understanding, she saith to him." Isn't that interesting? Exact same words being spoken out by both wisdom and folly, calling to the exact same target person, the simple, one that wanteth or lacks understanding. The simple ones are who both wisdom and folly are after. And that's because, well, they haven't made up their minds yet. They're naive. They're moldable. They're still persuadable. They are the undecideds. We've talked about this category of simple before in the book of Proverbs. And it's no sin to be simple and naive. We all have been, we all are in some regards. What's wrong or sinful is to try to stay that way. Because in reality, you can't. You're going to be pulled one way or the other, either towards wisdom or towards foolishness. But everybody starts out in life inexperienced. Everybody starts out not knowing what's what and which way to go. Especially those who are young would tend to follow into this category of simple. But then what usually happens is you grow up a little bit, and as you reach the teen years or you get into your young adulthood, you begin to slam into the hard realities of life that grow you up in a hurry. And you start asking tough questions because of the tough things that you're facing. And you begin to have to make decisions. Like, how am I going to perceive life? What direction am I going to go? And so, obviously, this is very important. If you are in your teens, if you're in your 20s, you're the ones that this was like originally written to. However, I think we can expand that out. Kids who are younger than teenagers, you should listen too, because you're already in your childhood years making choices that are either wise or foolish. You're pointing yourself in one direction or another. Proverbs 20, verse 11 says, "Even a child is known by his doings, whether his work be pure and whether it be right." So even from a young age, kids are deciding, are they going to obey and honor their parents? Are they going to treat their brothers and sisters in a right way, kindly? Are they going to apply themselves and be diligent in school? They're already making choices that are tilting them towards wisdom or foolishness. And then on the other side of young adulthood, there's more mature adulthood, right? And there's the rest of us that have been adults for years. And you could look back and say, a lot of the course of our life has already sort of been laid down and chosen in many ways. We kind of know who we are and what direction we're going. But we're still all making these micro decisions every day that's either on the right path or the wrong one that's making us either a wiser person or a more foolish person. And the more you make those good, wise, wholesome decisions, the more you open yourself up to the blessings of God, because God wants to pour out his blessings upon those who will go his way. And the more that we give in to habits and choices that are foolish and contrary to God's way, the more we deal with the difficulty that comes as a result. So kind of wherever you're at, man or woman, young adult, child, getting older, the idea here is that you are supposed to see yourself as the one who's standing in the middle. You're the one in the middle of this marketplace with two competing voices coming from either side and two offers being made from two houses and two different meals being laid out and two ways that you could choose to go. But you must choose which way you will go. And so you're either going to say no to folly and enter into the house of wisdom, or you're going to choose the opposite. You're going to say no to God's way and choose what foolishness has to offer. Those are really the only two options. So we've seen the similarities, right? They've got a house, they've got a meal, they're both crying out the same kinds of, same places and to the same ones that they're trying to reach and to bring in, and they're making these offers. And there's only a couple of key differences between them that make them distinct and that make these really two opposing philosophies for life. So the first difference that I spot between these two is we're going to have to do a little digging here to get to these. But the first difference would be committed effort on the side of wisdom or comfort and ease on the side of folly, right? Committed effort on the side of wisdom versus comfort and ease on the side of folly. So Where do I get that? Well, back up to verse 1. We're told about wisdom and her house. Where did this house come from? Wisdom hath builded her house. She hath hewn out her 7 pillars. So the house that she's living in, she built with her own hands. And it's got pillars, which makes it sound like it's pretty stable. This thing's not shaky. It's solid. It's held up. And these pillars, she painstakingly hewed out her own pillars that hold up her house. And so she's got this beautiful home. And what it represents is a beautiful life. A beautiful, stable, secure life. But it's not, that sort of life never comes easy. That doesn't just happen by magic. She had to work at it. That kind of stability is what we all ought to desire in life. And, there's something impressive about wisdom's skill to be able to do this, too. So sometimes I meet these people who built their own house. And I don't mean like they hired a contractor to build their house, but they built their house. And I'm like, who are you? It's incredible to me, the handy skills and the ability, the know-how to put a structure like that together. I've built a doghouse before. I helped my grandpa build a tree house before. You wouldn't want to live in those things, but some people can do some incredible stuff. And remember, wisdom and skill go together in the Bible. There's something that, wisdom knows some things. She knows how to build a good life. But in verse 13, we find that a foolish woman is clamorous. She's simple and knoweth nothing. She's clamorous, she's loud, she's boisterous. You could say she's all talk. But if you go to inspect what she's actually done with her life, what she's actually built, you'll find there's nothing there. She's in a house, but it says nothing of where it came from. She did nothing to build it. In fact, while wisdom is active and working at the beginning of this chapter, verse 14 has folly sitting at the door of her house. She's in her seat. She's taking it easy, enjoying a life that was handed to her, that she never worked for, and that therefore she doesn't fully appreciate, because that's the way it works. You don't fully appreciate things that are just handed to you. You don't know the value of it that way. The things that count for something are the things that we've worked hard for, the things that we've had to make sacrifices to gain. Life is like that. If you want a good, beautiful life, don't think that that's going to come easily. What you get out of life is going to be in direct proportion to what you're willing to put into it. You've got to put something in. If you're going to chase after comfort, day after day after day, I just want to be comfortable. I don't want to have to exert myself. If you just want to be at ease, you're going to have a weak and empty and defeated life. It'll be fruitless. It'll be unstable as compared to like the pillars that are just locked in place. But if you're willing to make some commitments in life and to consistently put in the work that it takes day after day to build a great life, then that's what you can have. You can have that. You can see this play out, this difference between committed effort and comfort and ease. You see it play out in the meals that they offer. Wisdom goes out and she kills her beasts and prepares her wine. That's no small deal to go kill an animal, slaughter it, butcher it up, prepare it. That's a feast right there. And folly, though, isn't willing to go through any of that. Instead, she offers what is stolen, because that's easier. Why do all the hard work yourself when you can just take it from someone else? And by the way, that's essentially the main difference between liberal and conservative in our country. Conservatives see America as a place of opportunity. You can go out and you can work hard and you can build something that will bring you success. Liberals see America as a place of oppression and think that they should be able to take for themselves from those who are more successful. Two very different ways of viewing the world. And the way you view the world, it's going to shape the choices you make, the direction that you go in life. God's way is the choice to shoulder commitment, to work hard, to build a good, stable life. The way of folly is to pursue comfort instead of that commitment. It's about following the path of least resistance and always just leaning into the easier route. If you're one of those that's always looking for a shortcut, that's the path of folly. Those who want a shortcut are expecting quick, easy results in life rather than taking on the long, committed effort and the labor that it requires to build something that's lasting and something that is real. So that's one basic difference that you can see between these two as you kind of hold up the mirror back and forth between them. And that's one bit difference. But I'll give you a second one, but in a way, it's sort of just an outflow of the first. They overlap quite a bit. It's about a person's goals in life, their aims, and what's your priority and what are you pursuing. Okay, the way of wisdom is after long-term joy. That's the goal. Want a life of long-term, thinking far, joy. The way of foolishness is about short-term pleasure. Those are being competed here against one another. Which does the Lord want for us? Obviously, the joy, the long-term, the eternal. The Lord Jesus told his disciples in John 15:11, "These things have I spoken unto you, that my joy might remain in you, and that your joy might be full." And I love the study of joy in the Bible, because at that moment in John chapter 15, you know where Jesus was going next? He was going to the cross. And yet, as he faced the cross, the book of Hebrews says, for the joy that was before him, he endured the cross. It's long-term in its scope. It's that stable that is sort of beneath the surface of where it's all topsy-turvy in life, and the ups and downs of the happenings and the circumstances that are going on. It's like, no, joy dives deeper. It's stable. It's secure. It's long-term. Again, I want to point out the different meals that are offered here. Wisdom offers some wine that she has mingled, whereas folly offers stolen water. Now, wine is often spoken of negatively in the Bible because of the awful effects of intoxication. But at other times, it is a symbol of joy and of rejoicing. And that's how it's being used here. Let me read to you from Psalm 104, verse 14 and 15. It says, "He, God, causeth the grass to grow for the cattle, and herb for the service of man, that he may bring forth food out of the earth, and wine that maketh glad the heart of man, and oil to make his face shine, and bread which strengtheneth man's heart." Those are all good things that God provides, and wine is spoken of there as something that makes glad the heart of man. Zechariah 10:7 says, "And they of Ephraim shall be like a mighty man, and their heart shall rejoice as through wine. Yea, their children shall see it and be glad." Now, those verses don't suddenly undo all the other warnings about the intoxicating effects of wine. I'm just showing you that sometimes it is used in the Bible to symbolize fullness of joy and just the richness of life as God provides it. The thing about wine is that it takes time to make. It takes time to mingle, as wisdom does here. You got to go out and you got to harvest the grapes. Well, first you got to grow the grapes. And then you got to harvest the grapes. And then you crush them and make the juice. And then you wait for the process to work as the juice turns to wine. It's not immediate. And neither is joy. Joy was never meant to be just immediate right now. It's a process. You have to keep doing the right things, even when it's not pleasurable, even when you don't feel like it. You be patient and let the process work. The foolish woman obviously has no patience for something like that. So she comes up with a cheap substitute for joy, and it's called pleasure. We'll just focus on pleasure instead. Verse 17. "Stolen waters are sweet, and bread eaten in secret is pleasant. The meal that she offers is not nearly as rich and nourishing and satisfying as what wisdom has to offer. She's killing beasts. She's offering the best of the wine and everything. You got a feast going on over at her house. All folly has is like, I just picture this dry, moldy bread and dirty water. But what makes it appealing, you're like, why would anybody go for that? What makes it appealing is the excitement of it. Because there's something thrilling in that which is forbidden. Isn't it strange that whatever we cannot have, that's exactly what we want? That goes all the way back to our great-great-grandparents in the garden. That's our deceitful flesh that tempts us to think that God is keeping back something good from us. God doesn't do that. Whatever he provides us, you know that is good. And whatever he forbids, and whatever he says, thou shalt not, and do not go there, he's not keeping us back from something good. He's keeping us back from something deadly and destructive to us. But there's something perversely exciting and pleasurable about taking for yourself something that you're not supposed to have, thinking that it must be better because I'm going to get it myself. You put this in the context of like a marriage, for instance. It's interesting how that men who are after the heart of a young lady will pull out all the stops. You know, we heard all about it at the wedding and the reception and stuff about the flowers and the dinners out and Brother Levi courting his bride. And that's good and that's natural. And that's the way a man ought to pursue the heart of his bride. But then sometimes once a man wins his wife's hand in marriage, it's kind of like the pursuit sort of stops. Like, okay, hunt is over. Got me my bride. And then it can work both ways. Both start to take the other for granted and they start to drift apart. As a matter of fact, it's amazing what an intense temptation there is before marriage for a couple to come together physically when it's not allowed by God, when it's forbidden and when it's against the rules. But then once they're married, that physical attraction can start to decline, or it can start to wander elsewhere rather than be focused on the one that God has given. So what's going on here? What is this desire for that which is inferior but more exciting? Well, one reason it's more exciting is that something real takes hard work. It takes a lot of commitment. It's sacrifice. That's what produces long-term joy. But fornication or adultery, that's not hard. There's no commitment there. It's a fling. It's about getting caught up in the excitement and the pleasure of a moment. Proverbs chapter 5 talked about being content in your marriage and learning to love the one that God has given to you. And Solomon wrote it this way: drink waters out of thine own cistern and running waters out of thine own well. You've got your well that God has given you. Go there for what you need. But foolishness counters that advice. She says, stolen waters are pretty sweet. Go steal someone else's water that doesn't belong to you, because that's exciting. But it's only exciting and it's only sweet for a moment. And then comes the bitter aftertaste of sin. But those who will put in the hard work to build something real will not experience the bitter consequences of going the way of folly. Wisdom is there, and she's calling out and she's saying, you know what I've got over here? I have life. I have a life for you. And it's a life that is beautiful. And it's a life that can be rich and abundant and a joyful feast all of the time. That offer is there, but only those who are willing to turn away from the momentary pleasure that foolishness is offering across the way. Look at verse 6. Here's the conclusion of her offer. Forsake the foolish and live. That means you can't be at that house and at this house. Forsake the foolish and come enjoy life. You can go in the way of understanding. Those two houses lie in opposite directions. To go the way of wisdom, you've got to forsake folly. You've got to pursue God's way with your whole heart. And the same's true for the other side of the street. Look at verse 14. For she sitteth at the door of her house on a seat in the high places of the city to call passengers who go right on their ways. Who go right on their ways. Whoso is simple, let him turn in hither. So those who are going right on their ways, that word right is like for righteous. It's the word straight. So she's out there, and there's those who are pointed the right direction, and they're kind of aimed towards God's way, and they're going right on their ways. And she's like, "Hey, turn over this way. Turn, get off that path, exit, and turn in hither." And those who want the shortcuts and the easy path and the cheap pleasure, they have to turn their backs on God's wisdom to do it. These are the choices. So you can't honestly say that while you're living in folly, that all I want is to live for the Lord and do things His way. No, you don't. Or you'd be doing that. Instead, you've chosen this path, the path of least resistance, because commitment's hard, and you don't have the patience that a life of long-term joy and stability requires. And it's not just a different way to live. It's a path that leads to death, not to living at all. Look at verse 18. But he knoweth not, because he's ignorant, because he's simple, because he's never been this way before, but he knoweth not that the dead are there, and that her guests are in the depths of hell. I think that probably works on both the literal and the figurative. Many who live a life of foolishness die because of it. You probably know people like that who went to an early grave because they were just foolish and they didn't make wise choices. And no doubt hell itself is full of prideful fools who chose their own way. That's true. But hell here also means the grave. The word means the place of the dead. So death and hell, those can come in different forms, including, I would say this, including for those who are saved. Okay? You're not going to die and go to the hell of flames and all of that. No, you've been spared from that. But there are many a saved person who's made foolish, awful choices who find themselves in a living hell in life. I'd say when David was confronted by Nathan over his sin, and then his child died, that must have been a special kind of hell that he had to journey through, all due to his foolish decisions. In Genesis, the Lord told Adam and Eve that if they chose to disobey him, if they chose the forbidden fruit, in the day they ate thereof, they would surely die. And they did die that day, didn't they? But spiritually. The physical death came later. But the sin separated them from God. And so when God's word says that those who choose to go the way of fools will end up dead and in hell, you better believe that. Don't just say, well, that's for the unsaved. I'm safe from that kind of consequences. No. Death comes in many forms. Hell comes in many forms. Death can mean your relationship with God suffers because sin puts distance between you and Him. It could mean your marriage blows up. It could mean you lose your kids. It could mean your life just becomes hellish. The Lord put it like this. I think He's saying the same thing. Wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction. And many there be which go in thereat. Because strait is the gate, and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. So when you read about the dead and the depths of hell, that would fairly equal what Jesus called destruction. It's the way of destruction over there. That's where foolishness takes you. So forsake the foolish and all the mess that comes with it and choose life. Live instead. Live abundantly. Live a feast of a life, a stable life. Go in the way of understanding. So whatever stage of life or whatever you're at right now tonight, realize you're the one in the middle. You have a choice to make today, this week, going forward in life, all of this. Which way are you going to go? What are you going to do tonight, tomorrow? Are you going to make wise choices or foolish ones? Which way are you going to go in your relationships? Young person, which way are you aimed? Which way are you headed in life? These are big decisions that come with big, heavy consequences. Well, I had a proverb to ponder some weeks ago, and I think this one fits it again, so we'll just repeat it. Only two ways, a choice you must make. Only one life, which way will you take? Only two ways, a choice you must make. Only one life, which way will you take? That's what we have for tonight. Let's pray.